Vital's Bee Practice podcast is proudly sponsored by Maxxis, Burgtec, and Industry 9. Welcome back, everybody, to Vital's Bee Practice podcast presented by Maxxis, Burgtec, and Industry 9. This is Jason Schroeder. Today, I'm joined by the one and only, and just one person, Dakotah Norton. Tanner is not with us today. Tanner is down under in Australia on a film shoot of some kind. I'm actually in Copenhagen, and where are you in Norway?
Norway. Lillehammer. So pretty close to half ale.
Right on. How was the bike park?
I went for Frida's birthday yesterday and rode and just did roller coaster laps all day. Rode the jump trail and only the jump trail, and it was glorious.
That's good. That's how that should be.
Yeah.
Um,
Vacationing.
yeah, right. I mean, you got it. You had this massive break in the middle of summer, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped on it. It's unfortunately we're gonna try to keep racing as much as I can, because if not, I'll show back up to a World Cup and wonder why everybody's going so fast. So I'm gonna try to keep finding reasons to ride my bike quickly over the break. But yeah, it should be fun. Should be laid back. We got I'm gonna race the Norwegian national champs. Because the rest of the world lets you race their national champs, you just can't win the jersey. Unlike America, where no one else is allowed to race. And then I'm going to go to Crankworks and race Canadian Open, and then U.S. national champs, kind of all back to back. So yeah, try to keep racing, and then try to be in the mix for world champs.
That'll be sweet. I'm just stoked you're doing Crankworks.
I'm just stoked to ride Dirt Merchant.
Yeah, it'll be good. It's been a lot of years since we've had a Crankworks year where all of our friends are going to be there.
I know. I'm pretty pumped. It's all of our friends are growing up, so now they can all afford to go on bike trips again.
There was kind of like a weird gap where we all were motivated to go to Crankworks as an example because of racing, and then we all stopped. We didn't have money, and nobody was motivated to go anywhere. And now maybe people do have money or like the means to go.
Yeah, I mean, we had to financially recover from racing. I mean, I'm still racing, but a lot of my friends
recovering.
had to financial recover from their racing careers, get their lives back on track, and now they're going to ride with. When all your buddies go to a race, it's a lot easier to find a reason to go and hang out with your friends.
It's the truth. That's why I think we all raced as long as we did before we finally hung it up. Just a good way to see everybody and ride places and travel and all that good stuff. All right. Well, we were just talking before we started recording that we're going to try to make this one short. So I'm going to actually try to keep us to that today. Leger, what a race. What a weekend. I feel like I've been saying that every round this year, especially after Val di Sole being a really good race. It was a good race for you. And I feel like if Leger was the race where we're like, oh, you almost got your first win again, like a weekend later, Leger was like that times 10 almost, like winning qualifying, winning semifinals, and then kind of goes the same route in the sense that Amaury stuck it to everybody. That's one of like the standout things I would say of the weekend. Weather played a big part, but really, if I look at the results sheet a few days later now, you still had a good weekend. I think you were like 4th overall in points on the weekend, moved up in the overall. A lot of positives to take out of it. But I want to open this up with the question of, you wake up Saturday morning and you hear that juniors is canceled. You guys are getting shifted up in the schedule because it's like this crazy storm coming. Like, what is on your mind being the last man down the hill?
Why am I awake right now? Usually the semi runs late, so we don't. I didn't leave the semi truck after the semi final until 9 o'clock at night. And then they said that we would have update at 7 a.m. and all riders needed to be ready for 9 o'clock practice. So definitely like an ominous morning, just waiting to see what happens. I had a pretty good idea that they would move the schedule forward with the rain coming at 3 o'clock. So yeah, we were up early, not a lot of sleep, and just kind of a weird morning, refreshing your email, waiting to see what happens. And we were just like, oh, well, we might as well just get up because we know they're going to push it forward. Juniors canceled road practice, pushed us all into an hour, and then we went racing, which was kind of nice. It was really weird because the racing was over by like 12, 1 o'clock. Like we were
Hmm.
done for the day. It was yeah, really strange. But yeah, overall weird morning. Hard to get motivated like to ride practice quickly in the morning, especially when you know the rain's coming. So you just kind of like rolled through practice. And I mean I did one fast run, but yeah, it was just bizarre overall because you knew you didn't need to push because it was about to start pissing rain at any moment. So didn't get to practice in the rain and then just had to send it in a race run.
You've always talked about looking at wet lines when you know it's going to rain. Like, did you treat the morning like that? Like, let me see ideas of where maybe I should be thinking of going.
Well, yeah, that's why it was very strange because we did the set track walk after the semifinal, and I was just looking to see routes, where I could go, where I would need to be, stuff that didn't catch me out, what I thought I could ride if it did get slippery, and just kind of come up with a game plan, right? So it's not a panic. You just can kind of shift gears, so to speak. I just spent the evening doing my like I guess my race day preparation, let's call it, my mental prep for the race day, and a lot of that was geared towards transitioning from riding at dry speed and where I would be going once it was wet. I still feel like I didn't necessarily do a very good job at that race plan, but overall, I think it was yeah pretty good success for the week. You know, a lot of points in the bank, and yeah, overall good.
Okay, your race run. Just jump into that a little bit. I have other things I want to come back to.
Uh,
Are you looking at the notes? You look like you
yeah, it
got
was.
something. Well, the I don't think you're bad at riding in the mud, like you were saying on the broadcast or in Win
No,
TV or somewhere.
I mean, I'm not necessarily. I don't think I'm a bad mud rider. I think my riding style, like my forceful riding style, is not great for when it's slippery. I think I am the best when it's tacky. Like I can ride pretty spectacular speeds when it's predictable. When it's unpredictable, I don't necessarily think I'm the best guy. Maybe that's because I do ride in the mud a lot, or maybe I don't ride in the fresh dirt. We've talked a lot about this. If you guys have listened to the podcast of what I think my strengths and weaknesses are as an athlete. But yeah, I mean, jump into race run, talk about it.
I mean, I guess I was going to go there because I don't think you're bad at riding in the mud. And it seems more like maybe your race run, some of like the goggle issues you had might have just set you off on like you were like a uphill battle a little bit. Like it's hard to be confident when you're having to fuss around with like just the unfortunate thing that is roll offs or tear offs. Which one were you running? Is it roll offs?
I mean, it was raining so hard, it was roll offs.
Yeah.
Like it
Like
was full
it,
downpour.
and you, it sounded like you got water like behind the film.
Yeah, well, I didn't get it behind the film. I got it through the foam on the inside of the lens.
Oh, interesting.
So it was kind of like one of those things. Yeah, I prepped one set of goggles with a tinted lens with one tear off, one set of goggles with a clear lens, and three tear offs that were water seal with perimeter seals. And then
Hmm.
I brought roll offs to the top. Um, Leger, the chair lift is open at the top, and it's like a 15-minute lift, 15 to 20-minute lift ride in the rain under an umbrella, trying to keep goggles dry and all your stuff's in baggies. And we get to the top, and there's a very small warm up area. It was just Cole, Ronan, Amaury, um, maybe one or two other dudes in the warm up zone. Everybody else was kind of spread around, and Ronan had the race open because we didn't know what to expect. I watched Frida's race run, and she did a 360 in the second corner, and then couldn't make it down the chute, flipped into the catch net, and then did another one off TV. She couldn't even get to the bottom. She's like, it was unbelievable, unbelievably slippery, unrideable, but dry in the woods for the most part. And then we kind of kept tabs on the race, watched a few runs. I watched Loris's run, a few other dudes, kept track on timing, and I knew with the amount of water coming down that at some point the open sections would come back and there would be more grip.
Hmm.
The big thing I didn't anticipate for I prepared for rain. I put on the visor extender, but I didn't prepare for the amount of water that we got maybe the 15 minutes before I dropped in. Um, the grip came back. It was really slippery in the woods, but for the open sections, we had good grip. And for sure, I knew that the grip was going to come, that the race would be a really good opportunity to try to do really well in my race run. Um, and yeah, I didn't tape the vents on the top of the helmet, and I didn't think anything of it. Once I started the warm up, I kind of geared my warm up to being a bit mellower than what I would typically do for a World Cup race run warm up. I would normally be so set on making sure that my legs are ready to push from top to bottom, but I didn't want to set the tone or the temperature of the race run to be too hot. I wanted to just kind of have a mellow 20-minute spin, and then drop in. No sprints, no body weight exercises, just kind of take it easy and let the track come to me. And then I still did override the track to a degree, but I think a lot of that just came from the amount of water. The main line had gotten pretty beaten down, and there was a lot of ruts on the track and holes. And every time you'd hit a rut or a hole, it was standing water, and then you'd get splashed. Once I landed off, I did get going a bit too fast in the first sector, and the step up where Ellie Husselbach crashed, and I almost crashed there. Went and jumped way too hot into the corner. And my first sector was pretty good, but going back into the woods, after the road gap, I was hitting the water so bad in all of those holes that I almost blew off the track just from like hitting the water puddles, and I was getting splashed really bad. I just ran the short fender. I didn't prepare for the amount of water in terms of the vents on the helmet because it was raining so hard. At that point, the water was coming in through the back of the visor and running down the front of my helmet into my goggles. And then I was getting quite a bit of spray from the tire, and yeah, I couldn't see very well. I think everybody watched the race run, seeing how many roll-offs I was trying to pull. I thought I had water underneath the tear-off film, but I actually had water on the inside of the goggle. So yeah, I was just trying to get vision, and it felt a lot in my race run like I was drunk. Like I'm just like I was trying to find the next corner, and I couldn't really see the corner and had no depth perception. So like I would either come in too hot or too slow or almost blow off the track. And yeah, it was just really frustrating. I felt like the grip was there to perform, and I wasn't there. I think Amaury did a great job with tire selection. He did a good job with kind of his whole setup. And he had the clear plastic on the top of his helmet that I think covered the vents. But I mean, dude, I can't say a whole lot. You know, Ronan dropped in just before me and crashed and beat me with the exact same setup. So yeah, it is what it is, you know. I can make excuses all day, but I still should have been able to perform. But it was kind of frustrating for me. I think I set the tone a little bit too hot and was like trying to push for sure, and just kept getting water and making mistakes, and it was just, yeah, it kind of fell apart. But yeah, vision was a big issue for me. Obviously, yeah, it was raining for everybody and it was slippery for everybody. But I thought I had a track that was capable of winning on, and Amaury showed that it was. He just executed better.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight though, you could have crashed like 50% of the field. Like at least you made it down.
Yeah.
A ninth a year ago, 2 years ago, I feel like we would be celebrating quite a bit, you know? And not that like that's the obvious evolution of your career as an athlete, like the expectation, especially after how your weekend was going, but could have been a lot worse. Like I was worried you were just going to slide out, you're going to pull a fin, you know, and slide down the hillside and have to go for a hike.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, overall, like, it was pretty sick for points. Like, my goal, obviously, I've been pretty open about my goals. I'm kind of balancing between trying to win and be top 5 in the overall. And that's, I mean, last year the goal was top 10. This year the goal is top 5. And you know, I'm pretty tight in the points with the guys at the moment. And you know, some dudes lost some points, some dude gained some points. But coming out of the weekend with 4th overall in points, I think was pretty rad because a lot of dudes gave a lot up. And
Hmm.
ninth sucks, but overall it was, points in the bank and moving forward in the overall and putting myself in a pretty good position going into the last 2 rounds. And yeah, dude, I won a quali in the semi. That's pretty sick. Overall, like it sucks to have the race run feel like it kind of like dulled the shine of the weekend, so to speak, because I was riding so well.
Yeah.
But that's just racing. I mean, it was a different race, and I definitely knew I needed to be conservative and like try to manage that race run, but I actually didn't manage it enough. Like I tried to go too fast, and because of that, I went slower. If
Hmm.
I would have just backed it back a little bit, I think I could have been right there on the podium.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
You know what they say? When it rains, you get wet.
Yeah, I was freaking wet. That's for sure. Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I mean, I think you can watch Pierron's helmet cam. Like, the
Dude,
dude's
it's
GoPro
mental.
never even got wet. But it was so much water on the track.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
pretty
don't know.
savage.
I don't really understand why I felt like it was so bad, and then I watch his GoPro, and I'm like, it was just like, really, dude? Like he looks like he's on a Sunday drive. So that's racing.
It is well, since we're talking about him, I mean, what are your thoughts on his run? Like, I feel like from somebody who wasn't at the race, you're just, anybody who just watched the broadcast, you see everybody coming down, like a mixture of people struggling. You have the few standout runs like Kolb and Thomas Stock and Remy Tiron having like really good runs, are really impressive, but everybody's slipping and sliding pretty hard. And then he comes through and it's like, not only does he have a really good run, but like what it was, 6.83 seconds or something like that. I mean, it's insane. Like it's a lot of time. And I find it interesting that he keeps mentioning how his like comeback year, he's struggling when the tracks are really fast. But Val di Sole, the weather came in, made the track more technical. Leger, obviously, it was like a mud race, so it's kind of all about like your how tactical you're going to be. Like I don't know, like what's your thought on all of that stuff and how he's approaching it?
The dude is perfectly centered between the wheels. Like his bike looks insane.
Hmm.
You watch him ride down the track and how centered he is in the bike, how he's able to change directions. He looks phenomenal. And yeah, maybe he is struggling with overall speed, where I feel like the overall speed is good for me. When the track is rough, I think I shine. I'm feel like my position on the bike is really strong, and I'm able to like hang it out a bit more than maybe some dudes are willing to. When it's really tough and physical, but when it's easy, I struggle and get smoked. Like when the track is just easy and you're like some dudes are willing to slide a little bit more than I am, like I get smoked. And when it's rough, I've been crushing it. And when it's wet, I've been just kind of struggling. I wouldn't say it's struggling considering my ride was pretty phenomenal at Val di Sole. Maybe struggling isn't the word. Um, I think it's more like obviously I was riding really well and riding really fast. And I just think that I maybe didn't do as good of a job about reading the terrain and the speed. I think um, he has a lot of experience doing that. He's really good at that. And I think when the grip goes away, like his setup is pretty dialed. I mean, so is mine, but he looks really good on the bike, and he looks man, he makes it look effortless. When there's no grip, they made all the right decisions. And I think as a program, like what I see is, dude he was on the phone talking on the trainer at the top, like full, the whole time getting information to him. And I had Corey up on the hill. He was in the last shoot, feeding me information. I did watch a couple of race runs to try to get some information. I knew Kolb went fastest, close to fastest, so I knew that the track was there to do it on. I had enough information. I just don't think I made the right decisions in like at the top of the hill um, to be as successful as he did. There was a few small details that he did better with.
I like that. It's fair. Notes to things to learn,
Called
right?
It's called racing.
It is called racing.
It's
Keeps you
hard,
hungry.
dude. Yeah. Yeah, he made the right decisions.
Yeah.
He was set up, he was prepared, and I think that I mean, to me, it looks like they've done their work in the wet and the dry.
Hmm.
Pierron Bike Park is pretty slippery all winter, where they live in between Andorra and France. Um, just seems like, yeah, they have a bit of the code figured out in terms of, I go ride and then I got a piece of paper towel in my pocket and I can't see. I pull over and I wipe my goggles off and I keep going and I don't think anything of it. And then maybe there is something to that where they maybe have done more homework in being, getting all the pieces to the puzzle together, like treating every day like a race, like how can we win today? And I think that maybe that's a bit of a strategy I need to adapt to more.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like we can break it down a bunch, but at the end of the day, that was one of the best race runs in a long time, I would say. Like it'd be like, I don't know who, people don't remember who got second to like Gwyn when he went whatever it was, 6 or 8 seconds faster at Val di Sole, because it was just one of those runs where like all the pieces fall together, right? So,
Hmm.
which, it's good to look at and take from. And there is something to be said about, him being French, him being on like home turf, like all those things. He's always fast there, like maybe it wasn't like the biggest surprise, but it was impressive nonetheless. So, um, what tires do you run?
Intermediates
Intermediates. Those darn unnamed intermediates.
coming.
Do you think you should have
You guys just gotta wait a little longer.
Yeah, right. Do you think you should have ran shorties?
Eh, honestly,
Or why
yeah.
didn't you? What was your thought? Like, what was your decision?
I only had a front at the top,
Mm,
and I think just because of the roots, I think the shorty knob is pretty small, the side
mhm,
knob, and it wouldn't have put enough rubber on the roots. But looking back, I think maybe I've never tested with the wet screen. Brittany Tyrion rode the wet screen all weekend, even in the dry, and went crazy fast on it. But
wow.
looking back, with the majority of the soft, unpacked dirt being in the woods, I think that it would have been good to have the shorties on in the woods, like especially for the top woods where like I made like a big mistake and almost
Hmm.
blew off the track. Because it's just like I lost both wheels, couldn't, and I hit the brakes and sped up. Like I just didn't have the braking power I needed to. That track is like the grade is so steep. Everywhere was open, I was great, but just not having overall the amount of braking power I needed to slow the bike down. I think
Yeah.
maybe going to the shorty would have been better. But yeah, man, hard to say. Hard to say. He had a full Dirty Dan on in the rear, and I cut Dirty Dan in the front. Can't speak for the rubber compounds. I don't know. I've heard whisperings, but it's yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a basic Dirty Dan. I don't know, but man, he went fast on him. I think he just primarily went to the full Dirty Dan for that last shoot, just to the
Dude.
race was getting won or lost there.
Hmm.
I seen him changing them at the top too, and I really don't feel I really don't know why I wasn't like more attention to detail. Like I watched him put the tires on, I looked at his helmet. I mean, I was up there at the top with the dude, and like I seen the fender that was on his bike and the whole nine, and it just I don't know. It's almost like I was so in the moment of like I was almost like a bit overwhelmed with not feeling like I had enough information
Mm.
of like course conditions, and I wish I had more help making the decisions in terms of like, well, I don't know. What do I do? What is the game plan? And that's something I have to figure out for myself. But I just wasn't thinking about how could the bike be the best possible, or like, is my equipment prepared? Maybe the way it should have been. Just because maybe just because the weekend was just such a weird, bizarre thing. It was kind of raining, it was kind of slippery, and then I was at the top and getting dumped on.
Hmm.
And when I was at the top, I wasn't in the headspace to make good decisions. And I think that's something I've kind of struggled with. Once I start to shut my brain off and try to just prepare to do like something that's really gnarly and almost like kind of afraid to do, I like the technical things start to leave my head. Like I think that's where it's good to have a good mechanic and like somebody that's confident making those decisions. You have like and I'm not saying my mechanic's not good by any means. I'm just saying like that's where the rider mechanic relationship needs to be really good because the mechanic maybe has to be able to make these suggestions like, hey man, do you want to move to this? Hey, do you want to move to this? A lot of water is coming down outside the tent. What do you want to do? Um, and yeah, I wasn't thinking about those things. I was just sitting on the trailer, preparing myself to be willing to pedal out of the starting gate and into those conditions and lay it all on the line. So I
Hmm.
wasn't thinking about technical things.
Yeah, I think it's a balance as well, though. Like you've had a good weekend to that point, right? It's like why I feel like there's more bad to come from questioning yourself at that point before your race run than there is just trying to like be cool with where you're at and feeling good in that. And I mean, I think it's funny leading this off with like being like, you're good at riding in the mud. It's like, well, maybe you have room to improve. And some of it's literally just reading it, like you have this experience. The next time something's happening, now you've got like all this information in your mind of if it gets to this point, I should be looking at like X, Y, and Z factor.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, and I think this week I did better than previous weeks in terms of information. And I'm continuing to, you know, since um since I've been working on so much things in terms of like my metabolic health, and I feel like for a while I was really struggling with like brain fog and anxiety and not really being able to freely think to the level that I am now. A lot of the times I just was really afraid to make decisions or afraid to make changes, or I wasn't thinking because I couldn't think. And like working on a lot of the things I have been. It's like I'm more open to making change. I'm more open to thinking about things more openly or freely. Um, and my like train of thought has been better. So I think every week, like the things that I'm doing are helping. And like I think that I'm more freely open to making decisions now, and reading it and making like confident in my decisions on the fly. So every week I'm getting better, and like with our program and the people that I'm working with, my new mechanic, with our engineer, we're trying to predict these things, and realistically, like every week we're gaining experience, and I have the experience, but I'm not always in a position to do that thinking or in a position to make those decisions. Why I'm trying to prepare myself mentally to do that really gnarly thing. So that also the team's getting experience, which is pretty cool. Our engineer's getting experience, and it's kind of like the same thing. He's like, "Oh man, why didn't we do this or why didn't we do this?" And every time we make those mistakes, then like his job is to just prepare the bike or think openly about what changes we can make. And as he gets this experience too, I think it's only going to get better and better. But that's kind of the whole thing with like changing environments, changing teams. Like when we've changed so much so often, it's things like this I feel like just get missed.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying like I missed anything other than maybe running a bigger fender and taping the vents on my helmet. Like it's such a silly thing. Like it's no big deal. But about the time that there's water running inside your goggle from the foam, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Hey, and to be fair though, like you said, Ronan dropped in not long before you. Same setup, didn't have the issues. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
shit luck.
Yeah. I think he
Um,
was 20 minutes before or something like that.
yeah.
So
But um, I want to talk more about the stuff you've been doing with like working on brain fog and anxiety and all that. But we were chatting
talk.
before we recorded, and we're going to try to do an actual inside line during crank work. So let's save it for that.
Yeah,
Feels like a
yeah,
good
we
topic
should.
for then.
No, I think it's good. Like a lot of the stuff I've been working on is like, yeah, I mean, it's just concussion health, and
Mhm.
I think it can help a lot of people. A lot of people might not even know. I didn't,
Yeah. No, I think
but
that's, I feel like everybody was hearing you start saying that right now and was like, I want to know more. And I'm like, we got it. We'll do it. We'll
it'll
do
come.
it later this month. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last kind of question I have in this intro here is were you able to escape the finish corral after you came
Yeah,
through the
dude, I
finish
was
line?
out. I was
Okay.
out.
Okay.
I was pissed. I was like, goggles off, straight to the truck. Like, not throw things pissed, like type pissed, just like bummed.
Mm,
I wanted to like get back on the lift and go right back up there and do another run. Like,
yeah.
was like that really, I felt like that whole weekend was so anticlimactic and like all that hype, all that like build up for that was just like I just felt like I got deflated.
Hmm.
Not that like I was trying to inflate my ego to race or something, but just like overall, this was like, man, all that for that. Like all that work, all those track walks, like all that time on the side of the track, and then I sucked.
It's still got to be better than last year in Leger because it's kind of the
Yeah,
same thing. And there you
yeah,
just slid out in like one of the upper turns. I was way
yeah.
more
Just
annoyed with you then than this weekend.
tuck the front. No, about the time I was at the bottom of that chute, taking a shit on my tire. I was like, both feet blew out and rode my nuts into the tire, and I was like, "You have to be kidding me!" After I sat there and watched Ocean O'Callahan slide on that rut and or that route, I said, "Wow, that's going to be really slippery," and then still rode over the route and still blew my feet out. Like, no. Oh well,
Oh,
what do you
that's
do?
pretty funny.
It was
Yeah.
that was many mistakes down the line, anyways.
Yes.
So
Yes. Um, Changing up the order of this just a little bit. Usually we do our industry and buzz report next, but our Maxxis make or break section historically has been you picking out a section you thought the race was won or lost. But I think it was our last podcast we did from Val di Sole. You kind of went into depth about moments in your race run when things were happening that stood out to you. Like you reflected on your race run about like the quick moment thoughts you were having about little choices and decisions you made. I thought that could be cool to do for like a make or break section. Like if you look back on your race, I know we talked a lot about the goggles, the fender, tires, yada yada, but like what moments stood out when you think back on it, good or bad, where you're like, that went great, or like you had like 15 thoughts go through your head during like a split second decision?
um
You know what's way cheaper than that suspension service your bike desperately needs, or less of a hassle than finally replacing those C-frame bearings you said you would swap after last winter? Slapping on some crispy, fresh Maxxis tires. Doesn't matter if you've got a month-old whip that came with some questionable rubber, or you're still rolling around on 26-inch wheels like it's 2013, Maxxis has got you covered. The tires of choice for the world's fastest racers. Whether they're sponsored by Maxxis or not, you can visit your local shop or favorite online retailer to get the same tread patterns and compounds. UK components brand Burgtec has long designed and developed components for racers and everyday riders alike. Well known as the cockpit of choice for shredders like Veronique Sandler and Josh Bryceland, they recently picked up the Trek Factory DH squad and the Yeti Cycles team. So look for Richie Rude, Mick Hanna, Loris Vergier, and Sacha Ernest all racing this season with the signature white and yellow Burgtec badge. But I do have to warn you though, as the Burgtec website is honestly a euphoric dark trap of mountain bike componentry. It's hard to leave without finding something you didn't know your bike badly needed. Anodized UDH hangers and axles? Yep. Titanium frame bolts? Of course. Offset shock bushings? Add to cart. A true one-stop shop for all the finer details and contact points on your bike. Make sure to check everything out at burgtec-usa.com.
Hot off the press, Industry 9 just launched their new Hydra Grade 300 V2 aluminum wheel set built for downhill racing, bike park smashing, and e-bike ripping. The rim features i9's triple cavity hollow beadwall technology that significantly reduces pinch flats, increases impact resistance, and minimizes beadwall deformation in the event of a harsh impact.
Dubbed the strongest aluminum rim Industry 9 has ever created, the Grade 300 V2 wheels are only offered in a 32 spoke count and a 27.5, 29, and mixed wheeled configuration and retail for $1,430. Check them out if you're looking for some problem-free wheels that can handle a serious beating.
After I landed off the road gap, I was turning left and I was hydroplaning. I actually
Terrifying.
wasn't hydroplaning. I was just blowing through water. And I was getting pushed wide into this tree. And that was the moment where I was like, the speed has changed. Because the top, there was good grip. I like slid on the first off camber, but I was able to ride pretty fast. And I just went into the woods like it was dry. Because you go from 10,000 miles an hour to almost a dead stop. And I actually almost blew off the track, and that slowed my speed down for the first kind of bus stop in the woods where the speed goes from real fast to real slow. And then I kind of made it through the first couple sections, executed the long rut into the cross, the off camber, and then I made that first mistake. And for some reason, I had this muscle memory of riding the rut, jumping the roots, free hopping, landing in the compression, and pumping the compression. And the muscle memory was built up to pre-hop and pump the compression. And in all reality, I should have been braking and then braking in the compression. And I just shot out of it. And I was like, oh my God. Like locked up the brakes. And I was like, I'm not stopping. I can't slow down. Like took my foot out to use as another brake and then almost blew off the track. And I was like, the thought in my head was, okay, that was my first mistake. Everyone's going to make a mistake today. Carried on. Back, like automatic reset back into race mode. And everything in my head should have been saying, it's really slippery, slow down. Yet I didn't. So I think I rode to the lake pretty decent. And then once I went back into the open at the lake, I really started struggling with vision. And yeah, just like I entered the chute, couldn't really see the corner at the bottom, did the setup, and I couldn't see 15 foot in front of my face. I was like trying to look for where I needed to go and I couldn't see. It was just all foggy, like not foggy as in fogged up, but just like blurred vision.
It distorted on you.
Yeah, distorted, no depth perception. And that's when I was just desperately pulling the roll. And yeah, just didn't as soon as I would be able to start to see it, just get splashed again. And yeah, it was just really frustrating.
Did you ever think to toss him?
No, probably should have. Would have worked out a lot better for me.
Yeah, I'm sure old Swerve is a lot happier that you didn't.
Yeah. You know, until I was really committed to the next wood section, I never thought toss them. Looking back, yeah, I don't know if it would have been better or worse. Probably actually would have been a lot better just to not run them in general. But man, it is what it is. You know, I did the best I could. I was frantic and then making mistakes because I was frantic because I couldn't see, and it just your boy was out there locked up.
Well, your insight into that first mistake I thought was neat because that was on the broadcast. I don't know if you watched it or not, but because you kind of like feed off almost like we're on your top two, if I remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was hectic.
I was behind the seat with my foot down, trying to brake with my foot, and it was the wrong side of where I was supposed to be going.
Yeah, exactly.
So I pumped, braked, bike stepped out, and I was like facing the wrong direction. Blew my foot out to try to stop, and then it was a mess.
Yeah,
the muscle memory was go fast when the muscle memory should have been slow down. But what do you do? That's racing.
Yep, it is. All right.
That's one of those things where like I think this is a similar thing to Poland for me. It's like protect your energy so you over the course of the weekend, if you're tired, like you start to get tired once you're on race day. Like I you know, like I said, I've talked a lot about my metabolic health, and I won't go so far into that. But on race day, I didn't get a good night's sleep. We were at the truck late, up early, felt lethargic in the morning, couldn't get fired up to ride, felt tired. And then you show up to that one run where you have to make those decisions so fast. And I just literally felt like I was too tired to make the decisions as fast. I wasn't able to process the information fast enough. Like I was just tired and
Mhm.
like making the wrong decisions. So that's something else I'm like working on as well, is just like we call it protecting my energy for sure. But like if you're a 10th slow and a 10th slow, and it's the same thing as if you hit your head and you're just slow, you're never going to
Mhm.
get the result you want. And if you're just tired, you're not going to get the results you want because you can't function and like your brain is not reacting fast enough, or processing information fast enough.
Yeah.
And when you're in that moment, you have to process information super fast.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. All little things, they got to come together.
1%.
I wonder what type of sleep Amaury got the night before. Must have got a good night's sleep.
That boy's sleeping good. I don't know, maybe not. Like I know a lot of like some of Aaron's like most heroic race runs and stuff. Like he's told me stories of him being like up till like 4 in the morning, not able to sleep, 2 hours of sleep right before practice, and then still like, still executing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but that's just something I've been working on, and something like I feel like when I do get tired, like my eyes get slow. If you look back at like a lot of the podcasts, like even the one we did when I was in Florida, like I get like a lazy eye when we're trying to have the podcast, and like I just cognitively diminish throughout the podcast just as my blood sugar goes down. But yeah, just trying to make sure that my eyes are fast and I feel energized and I'm ready to make quick decisions. And which I feel like sometimes like I'm really fast at the start of the weekend, and then by the time we get to finals, I'm just fried.
Yeah.
So yeah, trying to be better about that. Just especially when you like have high stress and then you can't eat on race day and your energy levels are down. Like I definitely feel like I'm doing better at like managing some things, but yeah, it's tough.
For sure. Yeah. Good thing we're starting this podcast with our blood sugar already low.
I just had dinner, dude. I'm set.
That's right.
I
We're full
am
swap.
set.
We're just seeing
Yeah,
about native right now.
you're built different, dude. You're built different.
Uh, um, that's all cool stuff. I look forward to chatting about that
Yeah,
here in a few weeks
cool.
because I think people will be interested in it. Even if you don't need to be some crazy athlete by any means, it affects you in every part of life. So, all right. Our Industry 9 Buzz Report, as people know, is where we chat about things that didn't happen during the race. And I've been traveling this past week, so honestly, I don't have a lot written down here. It's just me and Dak chatting. He's focused during the weekend on his race run. But did you see Danny Hart's custom chopped up GT Furry that his mechanic did, where he like cut a bunch of material out of kind of like the seat stay yoke in different or maybe it's like the main link even.
Yeah, the back of the link was cut open.
And then he had like different yeah.
No, it looked gnarly.
I don't know what his background is, but he's definitely pretty mean with the hacksaw.
He is not afraid. They're getting jiggy.
There's a lot of conspiracies on what actually that all could be for, but I thought it was interesting that he was like trying to make the interface of the hub and like axle and rear triangle stiffer so that you don't get as much flex in your rotor with like the brake pads and unintentional rub, but then also trying to add like compliance in the rest of the bike. Very it's quite the effort, but I'm all for it. Let's do the
Well,
weird
it's like it is also something like like the amount of flex we're getting into the shock, like because our shock is trunnion mounted, so and also you're getting the frame flex is so bad when we hit corners. Your shock actually takes a lot of those forces.
Oh yeah.
So like where can we build in compliance, but not to the point where it's side loading the shock or side loading the braking system? Like that's really interesting. I mean, it's above my pay grade. I ride the bike. They do that, but yeah, something else, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Pretty cool.
How many volume spacers are you running in your fork?
5.
All right. I don't think
Keep
we need
track
to
and
go.
only running 5. There was a time when I was like, Jordy, can we fit 8? And he's like, no, you're an idiot.
You're like, cool, 8 it is.
Yeah, 8 it is. No, he's like, the minimum 7, dude. or the maximum.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, come on. Let me put another one in there. Will it fit? Will it fit?
Yeah. There is a photo from our Pitbits video or a clip of like them pulling the top of the airspring cap off, and there's just like a whole stack of spacers. And we were like, what even is the max? Because like as a normal rider, I think I run 1 or 2 and I'm totally content with that. So maybe 2 things to close this out, and then I'll just breeze over some results and they'll kind of be it for this one. But do you think mud races make for better racing?
I think that if I was at home on my couch, I think we all look like idiots, but it did look hard. Like about when Ethan Craig was in the coffin position, lunging down the last chute. If I was at home, I'd be like, hell yeah, badass.
Oh,
Like,
I
this is
agree.
awesome.
I
It's like a
agree.
crash 'em up derby.
I think you have that matched with the fact that when you see professionals struggling and then you have somebody like Remy Pierron come through and put it together, you're like stoked in such a different way. Like it makes for such good entertainment because you're like you have the contrast of how hard it was what he just did, or like in the ladies field, dude, like only the top 2 actually made it down without crashing. So it's like you understand so clearly how hard it is what they did. Granted, conditions changing, yada yada. I think it makes for good racing. I think that your racer mentality has to a degree, kind of be carefree. And so I feel like you heard a lot of people come down being like, I had so much fun. Because like the expectation has to be lower. You like kind of what you've been talking about. Like you maybe would have been better off lowering your intensity a bit, because then you just go with the flow a bit more versus forcing the issue. And it's, I don't know. Yeah. From a viewer standpoint, it's sick to watch people that are really good at riding conditions that 95% of the people watching could literally have not made it down. Probably 99% of the people watching.
But the part that gets me going though is like when you watch, like these are the best riders in the world. I don't think most people actually understand how fast we are. Like, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. Like but the majority of people have not watched like, and even in America where the speed is 23k an hour, not 43. Like the tracks we're racing at the World Cups are twice as fast as what we race in America on average, almost consistently. And it's like when you actually watch us go by at a World Cup, it's like I stand on the side of the track and I'm like, that dude is absolutely hauling.
Yeah.
Like he's going to win this week. And then he's in 60th. And it's like the speed that we go, especially the top dudes in the race run. It's like you watch El Hombre at your local motocross practice track, you're at Glen Helen, and they go by you like you're standing still. And it's the same thing with us. Like most people actually like can't fathom how fast we go. And then you watch those dudes and it's like, I feel like it's so disconnected how good those dudes are. They're like, oh yeah, I'll try to, I can ride with him. I can hang with him for a minute. I'm like, dog, you won't hang for me. You won't see me in 3 corners. Like, I don't think you understand. But these boys are bad. They roll. They're all really good. So when you watch these dudes struggle that bad, it's like, I feel like people don't actually understand how gnarly it is or how slippery it is. I feel like there is a big disconnect for the most part. But yeah, it does make for good racing. But I seen this like one dude posted online after the World Cup cross country race that was real gnarly a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, these are supposed to be the best riders in the world. I'm not very impressed." I'm like, dude, you ride that bike down that, like they're still really gnarly. Like I think people get disconnected to a degree. But yeah, I think it makes for good racing. That's the only thing I think people don't actually realize is how good like the dudes are, which kind of sometimes does get me a little fired up. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Does it make for better racing, or do we just look like clowns?
I think it's pretty split. Like I was saying, I think you get both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. People don't. Obviously, everybody's fast right at the top. You expect World Cup athletes to be fast, but if you have a way to compare that to something like say you came and rode somebody's home trails and lay down a time on Strava, where you can have like a real clear comparison, it's pretty nuts. Like there is a gap, like I'm not anybody by any means, but like in the big picture, right at well above average level, and I think about it
much above average.
Well, and I realize that going and riding, not to be like a weird tangent, but like I notice it's snowboarding. I can make it down every run, but somebody will come by me and do something that I can't even fathom doing it. And I realize that that's just some average Joe on a Wednesday afternoon catching laps after work. And I think about that myself riding, where I'm like, there's a big ass gap between like where you're at and I'm at, and where I'm at and other people are at like a local bike park. And like the things you're thinking about, maybe it's a good way for people to think about too. Things you say sometimes, you're a very small percent looking at little percentiles at the end of the day, because it is what adds up to go like stupid fast. So,
not really touching the ground.
Or the brakes, right?
Yeah, none of them.
All right, the last little thing I've written down here, which is more just something I wanted to mention, is that where's everybody talking about electronic suspension? Huh? Where's everybody at? That was the big talk beginning of the year, and I haven't heard shit the last 2 rounds. Amaury's come out with his stock ass suspension and just put it to everybody.
Stock.
I know, yeah. Stock's pretty loose.
You're funny.
Well,
Stock.
what's the term for it? It's
I don't
do we
know.
use acoustic like we do in e-bikes? You got acoustic suspension.
I wouldn't call it stock. I mean,
Well,
it is. I mean, it's. I mean, fairly stock, but
your stuff's probably not stock.
I'm stock. I'm in the stock class for sure. Yeah, we're not crazy. It's just a funny term to use the term stock.
Yeah, stock and factor is great phrasing
compared to a full electronic. Hitting buttons, hitting switches.
Mm-hmm. How about what Amaury has is probably something more achievable by the general public than what flight attendant rock stuff and the old stuff on Bruni and Finn's bike. So
yeah, he's not that far off. It's not like I'm saying that he's running crazy stuff in there. It's still just, I mean, it's stock. I mean, it's just well thought out, well executed
stock
settings.
Super thought out stock.
Yeah, super thought out stock. But yeah, I mean, okay. What track is next?
Oh shoot, it's the new one from last year, Ludenville.
Andorra and then Ludenville. I think we're going to be talking more at those 2 events.
Yeah.
Maybe not Andorra as much because it's like a 2-minute fast track. Ludenville, I think it'll play a role, but it's just funny how you say it. Stock. I think on a weekend like this, yeah. I mean, when there isn't a clear split and the track is like pretty top to bottom, yeah, normal. I guess a normal downhill track. It doesn't play as much of a role for sure. I mean, just having like your stuff working really well. The Commensol works really well. Our bike's working well. Honestly, our bike is pretty dang good at the moment. And I think that's when you see like the racing be really consistent. But it's when there's like an anomaly in the like Leo game where the track is very clearly 2 different tracks or has a large section where you can gather like, a second from the lockout. But I think when it's like very consistent and you're tuning for one thing, stock can go pretty fast.
I agree, but I also think people just love to read into shit more. Like if Loic or somebody with electronics doesn't win Ludenville, I don't think people will talk about it. I think it'll be old news, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna breeze through some race recap stuff. Just for anybody that didn't watch, because I took all the notes on this, took time to do it. So I'll read through some of it. Juniors didn't race, so they took qualifying times. In the junior women's, you had Heather Wilson in first, Ella Svegby in second, Ellie Holzbosch in third, Arise van Leuven in fourth, and Sacha Ernest in fifth. Ellie holds on to first in the overall with that third place. So Arise drops from 5 to 10 points back. That's still in second. Heather Wilson is in third, but goes from 30 to 15 points back, even though she won the race. Because she won the race. Sacha Ernest holds on to fourth. She drops from 45 to 65 points back. And then Ella Svegby moves up to fifth after not even racing the first 2 rounds and is 110 points back from first. Moving on, junior men. Ace Vermette took the win. Max Allren in second. John Mozelle in third. Dane Jewett in fourth. Raphael Pelletier in fifth. Might be saying your last name wrong. I forget, is that Ace's 4th win of the year?
I don't know, but dude almost went over the turn up top, and he got squirrely.
Did he?
Yeah, I watched his GoPro, and he like jumped to double where Ellie went into the stratosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and he like jumped deep too, and then got stood up and was like riding the top of the corner. Man, the Allren brothers, I rode with them some on like this insane steep loamer on the Planey they had built, and it's pretty cool, like to see. Like, it seems like all 3 of those, both Allren brothers and Asa, they like all really enjoy riding, and it's like cool to see those kids just love riding so much and riding and playing, and you can't rip Asa off his bike and then watching him go, added in the race run. I think it's a bummer all the juniors didn't get to race. I know that Chris Hauser was like literally about in tears when they canceled the race because he was so bummed because he like had a terrible quali and then kind of got the race taken from him. So I think it's a big bummer to see them not get the opportunity to race and not like see a fair fight on it, especially with the Allren brothers and their home race, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're French. They're French, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're French.
They are French.
So I'm sure like
they're French.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a bummer to see them not get the race. But yeah, our boy is racking them up.
Yeah, and I feel bad that I don't. Let's see. He won the first 2. He didn't win Val di Sole, so I think he's won 3. Is it 4?
Hard saying.
Hard saying, not knowing. Ain't that right?
Hey man, I'm not the facts guy. I just show up here.
This is usually when I keep talking
Tanner.
and then Tanner starts. He does the information. Oh no! Wait, 1, 2. It's his 3rd win of the year. All right. Well, he's in first still. Now he's a 23-point lead over Max, who's in second. 10 points more than it was after Val di Sole. Dane Jewett and Luke Wayman swapped spots in the overall. So I actually don't remember what they were before. Sorry, I'm kind of botching this. Milan Falquette remains in 5th, but he drops from 43 to 99 points back. So yeah, definitely bummer juniors did not get to race. I guess I understand it. I'm glad you guys had to race. Is what it is. Can't predict the weather. Elite women. Eleonora Farina, first World Cup win. Super cool to see. Did come down a little bit earlier on, but I don't think you can argue that she had still a difficult track to race. And then Millie Johnson in second. I believe that's her best result. Only other woman to put together a full run. I know she was like visibly stoked after having a pretty up and down season. And then Tawny Seagrave in third, Miriam Nicole in fourth, and Valerie Hole in fifth. Current overall going into the rest of the year, Valley holds on to first with 1,445 points. Tawny's still in second, but catches up by only 5 points. Maureen Cabarrou remains in third, but drops from 238 to 409 points back after this weekend. And then Miriam jumps up to fourth, and Nina Hoffman remains in fifth. I actually have a note here that Millie came out the most points on the weekend with a 252. That's pretty cool to see. Elite women or elite men. We talked a lot about Amaury. Definitely the run of the weekend. Potentially the run of the last like 5 years, I might say. Other than that, Andreas Kolb, another great weekend for him. I believe it's his best result of the year with the second. Greg Narn third. I would say that's like the other highlight of this weekend, seeing old Greg actually putting together a run, going down first, finishing on the podium, played the rain dance card, didn't qualify super well. I think I heard that he did this in Leger in like 20 years ago where he pulled over in qualifying to go down early because he knew it was going to rain in finals, which is just amazing that he's done that like a decade and a half, 2 decades later. Remy Pierron in fourth and Thomas Stack in fifth, also two cool names to see on the podium. Riders that I wouldn't say got lucky by any means with like the weather. They just put together really good runs where a lot of names are used to seeing up there had crashes and issues. A shout out I wanted to make was Dylan Maples, fourth in qualifying. I was bummed to see him go down in semifinals, but you need everybody like him that's on the up and up has these like glimpse, like moments. Like I think about you like going fastest and qualifying at Lenzerheide a couple of years ago. Like those ones happen, and then unfortunately it seems like luck always goes the other way or who knows what, but good to see he's going to be up there. Unruly Dooley, first top 10 in 10th place. He had a sick run. I think all those plenty laps are paying off. Plenty laps in the mud. Other than that, a lot of names we're used to hearing being up there. Maybe didn't have the best weekend ever. Loic definitely was on damage control, finished 7th. Looked like he was just out there trying to manage his overall lead. That's all he was caring about. I don't think he, for one moment, thought about trying to win that race. Anything else you want to add? All righty. Current standings going into Lutonville. Loic holds on to first with 1,403 points. Amaury impressively has jumped up to second, 216 points back, which is not a ton. Closer than Finn was after Val di Sole. Troy holds on to third. He has 120 points back on Amaury. Finn drops from second to fourth, but he's just 6 points behind Troy. Dak, you jump up to fifth from seventh. You were 129 points down from third after Val di Sole. Now you're only 93 points. Ronan continues to sit in sixth, 17 points behind you. And then Luca had a pretty rough weekend. He drops from fifth to seventh, but he's only 5 points behind Ronan. Man, I'm going to make like a wild prediction now. I think that this could come down to Mont-Saint-Anne, the last race between Loic and Amaury. I think he's going to have some good results coming up. Maybe even be world champion in Andorra.
Is it 6 riders can still win the overall?
Is that what it is? Is that the breakdown? Are you one of the 6?
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I guess you'd have to be right. You're in 5th.
I'd have to win everything, but I could do it. Better watch out.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm getting jiggy in the in the little break here. You better watch out. I'm coming.
Those dirt merchant laps are going to pay off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All righty. Burgtec, labor of love. Our chance to highlight a rider that's not in a factory program who had a good weekend. The 2 names here are 2 names we've had before. Unless you have anybody else that stood out, I looked through results and it was tough to pick somebody out for this race, actually.
Have either of these people won any money from us before?
We picked the first name on there for last round at Val di Sole.
Ah, that's right.
The name below that we discussed picking, but we knew that they had more potential, but it's a tough one because we picked that second name, they didn't actually have the chance to race because juniors got canceled. But at the same time, it's like the person's shown up and has just done damage out of nowhere. I don't know. I'm almost like, do we not pick one this round? And that second name, if they do well at Worlds or something, we double up.
That first name had
I know
a double dogger.
Yeah.
It could maybe be the double dogger.
Like maybe it's deserving of the or we split it.
Yep.
I don't really know. I'm kind of torn on this one because we've already picked the one person and then the other person I think still has potential, but they had a good weekend. So
I think I know who should get it, but
Well, which one are you just thinking of? One or two?
I don't know. Old mate over here, first final in 3 years.
Oh.
First final in 3 years. Straight into the final.
Hmm.
Could be also a good option.
Hmm.
But I'm biased.
But old Frida does have support to get
She
to the
does
races.
have some support. She does have support. Isn't Stefan in he's on Rogue Racing, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah. I think they're only
I think he's on a pretty or non-factory program.
hard to say. I think they have a data guy. Let's give it to the girl.
Man, I'm almost like maybe I'll hold off on this one, and
Okay.
I'll let people shoot me a message. People listen to this, or go leave a comment on the site, and we can do a people's choice between.
Let's put up 4 options. People's Choice Award. It's going on the site.
Okay, who are our 4 options?
Should we well, that's a good option. That's a good point.
Well, we have.
I think we just cut this. I think we just make it so you can cut it, and then we proceed talking as if our labeler loves this week. And we just cut it and then have a People's Choice Award.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave all this in because I don't have to edit it. I think the People's Choice Award will be between Frida, Ellis Vegby, and Stefano and Trozzi.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. I like that.
Yeah, no editing.
And if if we can't come to a decision, we'll I think that there's a pretty good chance that those names will be in there at another round, and maybe we'll double up if we don't end up paying out for this weekend. We'll just double them up. We'll get the money from the past. So, all right, I like that. All righty, this one's come to a close, but I think it was a good conversation. People just want to hear about your weekend. You're so damn close to winning. I mean, shit, you did win. You won twice this weekend. How fucking annoying is that? You won twice, but when we apparently care, you got 9th. So
yeah, it's just and when you look at it, I just got 9th, buddy. I got some points, but I got 9th. Yeah. It is what it is, and we'll keep moving on, keep moving forward. Really stoked on what I'm doing. I mean, at the end of the day, 9th place at a World Cup being a bit of a sad situation is just like, it is what it is. Bad. It's not that bad. A lot of positives, my Instagram, a lot of positives to take away from the weekend. But honestly, dude, I was riding sick and I'm ripping and got the bike working well, and I'm happy, so that's important. We'll just keep fighting, and a little bit of break, a little bit of R&R, and then come into Worlds and manage energy and try to win the damn thing. Wouldn't that be cool if the first win was World Champs? Wouldn't that be really something? So
that would be pretty sick.
Keep working, and Well, no. I'm capable of doing it, so that's cool. We had a call with my coach, and he's like, "Man, I think we just go for it." And I was like, "That's a cool call to get, and it's pretty rad to be riding at that level." So we'll see what happens. I think I got robbed there last year, so new year.
Yep, I like that. And there's good competition right now. It's cool to see a lot of fast people going fast,
dude. Yeah, pretty wild. Dudes are rolling at the moment. The level in the sport is so high. It's incredible. It really, like, everybody is rolling.
Yep.
So back to work.
Sweet. Alrighty. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the Bee Practice Podcast. Thank you always, Maxxis, Burgtec, Industry 9 for supporting this. We'll probably see everybody definitely after Worlds, but there might be an inside line that comes out sometime in between you and I when we're in Whistler. So stay tuned.
Let's do it. Later. Sweet.